Coffee with Joe 2019, first episode of the year. I'm going to give you guys a little bit of history for those of you who are tuning in for the first time. I started this back in May 2018, and it was just a thought, it was just an idea, and it has grown quite a bit. My wife provided me this, or gave me this as a gift, back in December before March, and she told me to follow my dreams. Podcasting is something that I've thought about for a number of years, but I just never had the cojones to do it, okay? But with my wife Amanda's support is the word I'm looking for, and commitment, and telling me to do it, telling me to go forward, try it. You have nothing to lose, right? So I'd like to welcome my co-hostesses, my wife Amanda and my friend Renee, and I'm going to let them introduce themselves properly. So with that, I'm going to let Renee start.
Okay. So my name is Renee, and I met Joe when he invited me to participate as a guest in one of his episodes. I was impressed with what he was doing for work. It's in line, he and I have similar philosophies. It's in line with what I do for work. I've just opened up a mental health practice here in Timmins, and I'm still in part getting my practicums done, and I'm still in part a student. That's why my rates are low right now, but at the same time, I'm taking new people in. I've got it open in my schedule, and fresh out of school, so I bring a lot of information, I think, to the panel is what I'm going to be doing, because a lot of the things that we're going to be talking about, I've been studying in school quite recently.
Absolutely. It's all about knowledge and information, and the more we can educate our audience, then I think we can save lives. But now we're going to let Amanda introduce herself.
I'm Amanda Lachance, Joe's wife, and he had asked me to sit on the panel to kind of bring some of my personal experiences to the table, maybe to be able to relate to you guys a little more, share some of my experiences, be understanding. Sometimes when you're having issues with, let's just say, anxiety and depression or something along those lines, and it's hard to say, it's hard to get out what you're feeling and thinking in here and in here. And then when you do, you're like, oh my gosh, did that just sound so stupid? Well, you know what? And you're like, they just are not gonna get it. Well, I will be that one to get it. I will understand.
Awesome.
I live it. And that's why I want to be here, to see what I can do to help out.
Absolutely.
Awesome.
Absolutely. Right? I mean, real life experiences is necessary, right? Amanda, I'll say, is a great example of someone who suffers mental health day in and day out. And I know this is not the first time that I say this. First time this year. Now she's with us. I never ever thought that she would be on camera, so this is huge for you.
Facing your fears.
Facing your fears.
Good for you.
Absolutely. And I mean, I know it's not easy. It's not easy, and that's why we say it ain't weak to speak, right? I mean, that's why we're doing what we're doing. This is the whole purpose of Coffee with Joe, is to bring you guys that awareness of mental health, right? So like I said, I started this back in May. Fast forward to now, 9-10 months later, 8-9 months, I don't know, my math isn't that great. But
7.
Fast forward 7 months later, and I mean, look, we've gone from my basement to the University of Hearst. I have to give them a big shout out, a big thank you for providing this. I mean, look, right, the facility, the camera.
It's all brand new and shiny.
It's all, yeah, I mean.
It's nice.
So, I mean, seriously, honestly,
background.
we couldn't do this without them and their support, right? Well, we just talked about the purpose.
So what about the hopes?
The hopes. What are the hopes? What are the hopes? The hopes are to reach as many of you. For those who are suffering, please know that you're not suffering alone. You're not alone in this world, because like I've said before, we all go through stuff, right? We all battle mental health. And if you haven't, at some point in your life, you will, right? I say that. So I don't know what your opinions are on that. That's my opinion.
Oh yeah, it can be grief. It can be, maybe you've survived abuse. Maybe you survived, conflict even with somebody. Whatever it is, you can be so distraught sometimes. But it doesn't show on the outside. But it's up here and in here. And so, yeah, I would agree that most people go through this. We have a long life expectancy, and in the 80, 90 years that we're expected to live, most likely we're going to go through something or other, right?
That we hope to live, right?
Yeah, of course.
No.
Being
So
optimistic.
some other hopes that I would hope, Joe always says, it's not weak to speak. That I have some hard time with, and I'm sure there's many others who do think it's weak to speak. So maybe we will take this journey together on trying to know that it's okay and maybe not weak to speak. So along our shows, I would like to maybe take the steps to open up a little more with it and try seeing how it's not weak to speak.
Awesome.
And maybe be able to help as many out there, because it's also not just to talk about just our anxiety and depressions. There's going to be so many different topics that we're going to talk about, but they all do go hand in hand with mental illness. So we will be doing that, as well as many other things along the way to raise funds to be able to donate money for the mental health issues. To maybe help along research, or maybe make the wait time for counseling not so long. To see a psychiatrist, it's quite brutal right now. If you need help, right now your best bet is a crisis center, or the crisis center at Emerge or CMHA, because that's where you're going to start to get your help. Because going to the doctor, it takes a long time to get in, many months. So we're hoping that maybe some of the funds that we raise and put in will help shorten that time to make it a little bit easier for people, so when you are having a crisis, that you can get help.
Amanda, you just gave me an idea as well. I wonder if this can also be a hub, or a center for exchanging resources. So if anybody knows of anyone, another professional that has room in their schedule that can take, and you don't have to wait 2-3 months to get services, or if you know a place where you've been, where you had excellent services and you would recommend someone, that's also a plus, and maybe we can make this a place where we share information as well.
Absolutely.
What do you think of that?
I'm on board for that. Are you on board for that? Sharing is caring, people.
Absolutely.
Sharing is caring.
Any help is welcome help.
Like you were saying, anxiety, depression, this comes in many forms, many different ways, like you were saying, whether through abuse, whether through grief, with the loss of someone. And you know what, maybe we should touch on the grief part and the loss, because we have someone within our group, and we're not going to mention names, that has lost a friend this Friday to suicide. So we talk about mental health and how real it is. My friends, that is how real it is. Because when you don't know someone is suffering,
Yeah, they don't get
Life,
the help. They
no.
don't get the help. Yeah.
And unfortunately, for this individual, that was the only way out. So if we could, please just take a moment to
Pay our respects.
let's just take a moment now to pay our respects for this individual. It was a young lady. So for our team member, we'll take a moment. So I appreciate, we're live, so I appreciate those who are tuning in and who paid their respects by this moment of silence. And our thoughts and prayers go out to the family and friends of this individual.
Absolutely.
I say life is precious. Life can end in an instant. It's that fast. I broke my finger. I don't even know how I did it. I mean, come on. It's life. This is why we're doing what we're doing. To try and reach people who feel like they have no way out.
Feel alone?
You feel alone?
You don't have to be alone. We found each other, and we're reaching out to you. Joe has found lots of people, and so we want to find more of you, and we want you to tune in. And if you get something out of what we discuss, bonus, excellent. And if it keeps even one person from committing suicide, then I think we've done our job.
Absolutely.
So absolutely, it's what we want. We want to reach out and make you feel like you can chat with us, you can communicate with us, you can message us. Sure, we're not always going to be live. Sometimes it'll be pre-recorded, or most of the time it'll be pre-recorded, but we're available. You can message us, find us on Facebook.
Do you want to tell them how they can find you on Facebook?
Yeah, my Facebook page, my professional page is called A Plus Tutoring and Mental Health Consulting Services. So just type in mental health and Timmins or something like that. You should see my picture comes up. So you should see me there. Just click. Then you just need to do a like on my page. And when you do that, you'll follow any of the things I put up. And if I ever have room in my schedule, things like that, I might put that up. And if there's a spot that works for you and you feel it's time for you to reach out, you can absolutely do that. If it's not time yet and you just want to read some of the things that I post and see if it reaches you at all, you can do that. I mean, you're welcome to do that. I welcome everybody to reach out.
Can you explain again real quick what it is that you are your expert, like what it is that you bring for yourself as far as your business? What can they...
Okay, so I've been studying psychology at the university level for 5 years now, and I still have 2 more years to go, possibly more, because I do believe I want to go all the way to the doctorate level. But for now, and so what I've done, and my specialty has been trauma, and specifically sexual trauma, so childhood sexual abuse or sexual assault for adults. But any trauma, I'll work with people who've been through car accidents. I'll work with people, a little bit of everything. So, and then tying into trauma, a lot of times you've got the anxiety and the depression, so I've decided to include that. And just out of my personal interest, I've included career counseling as well. And I've just opened up my practice. So I've just opened up a practice. I've got my office. I'm still under supervision, but that's going to end soon because I'm getting those hours in and I'm going to sign that off. Which, by the way, means that the college is going to expect me to bring up my prices. So if you're looking for a really good deal, now's the time. I've got
student rate, guys.
I've got student rates right now because probably by the end of January, end of February, something like that, my rates will go up. But if you've signed up with me, I'll lock you into the student rate and I won't bring it up for you. So that's been my passion. It's been my passion since I was a teenager. I've had a passion for psychology, and I've done some teaching as well. So you'll find that I like to share a lot of information as a psychoeducator, bringing a lot of information is what I'm hoping to do with the show.
It's wonderful. It's great, honestly.
So, yeah.
I'm happy that you're here, that you've accepted to do this with us. I'm happy that you're with me, of course.
And your Coffee with Joe, if you go on there and you need to talk as well, that one's always monitored too. Joe or myself is always checking the messages, and they do come in daily, multiple times a day. So we're always there, available to help, lend an ear.
And guide.
Yep,
And
guide,
right?
give resources if resources is what you need, or just a peer person just to talk to. Or maybe, even there are times where we had to drop what we were doing and go somewhere to help someone because they needed to talk.
Awesome.
And that is something that we will continue to do.
Oh, good for you.
Yeah, listen, I mean,
didn't know that. Awesome, guys.
With us creating, with us building the companies that we have, And having multiple employees, it has given us the freedom. We've created our freedom. It's given us the freedom to do other things, take on more responsibility, set personal goals, and this was one of them for me.
It's a
And
passion.
It's a passion.
You know?
But we're not getting paid, by the way.
No,
so
no.
we're doing this because we
is-
love it.
Absolutely, and that's where this is all. We're just doing this honestly to help
Help.
Because we
those
care.
to
Help.
raise funds to put into that healthcare system or things around town who are geared around mental health. We are there to help locals. We're just helping is what we're doing. That is our passion. That's why we want to do it. It hits quite close to home for me. Joe as well, for being with me for 20 years. He's seen me at my best, at my worst, and
Likewise.
That's what it is in
She's seen
couples,
me-
right?
She's seen me at my best and at my worst.
Sorry, I don't do couple counseling. Can't help you there.
maybe we can. Okay.
But yeah, do you want to let them know where they can reach you as well? On Facebook?
So if I'm somebody you would like to reach out to, you can private message me at Amanda Lachance on Facebook. And I am definitely always willing to lend a shoulder, an ear, my time. If that's what you need, that's what I'll do.
Absolutely. And I will say likewise because of the situation that we've created for ourselves, so we're able and capable of most of the time being able to drop things to get to someone, to talk to someone, to speak to them, and try and make them feel better, understand, or guide, right?
That flexibility.
That flexibility. So, and I mean, that's, for some people, business is about getting rich and adding those zeros, but it's not for us, right? I mean, we try and give as much back as we can with our companies, and now giving back our time, our valuable time, to use guys to try and reach as many of you, right? Time out. Guys, we're still shooting. We're getting down our list. We're going to be talking about stigma, how and where it's come from. I'm not the expert or the professional on it.
Actually, we do mean to say that. We do not claim to be doctors at all in any means. We are just here as peers. So please don't think like, what do they know? They're not doctors. We don't claim to be, but sometimes peer support is much better in some cases than actual what?
Psychiatric intervention?
Yes,
or
yes.
I'm trying to figure out.
And you know what? For me, I do both. Peer, this is my peer. I don't open too much to anybody, but I do see the professionals. Absolutely. I am not against professionals. I am 100% for them. 100% for them because they have gotten me so far. So I do recommend that as well. But just so everyone knows, we don't claim to be doctors. We're just here for you on a peer level.
Now, Amanda says that because we've had messages.
Who are you to say?
Exactly. I mean, I've talked about addiction. I've gotten, in hot water with a family member, and it is what it is. Either you accept it or you don't. Like Amanda said, I'm not claiming to be a doctor. Renee's not claiming to be a doctor. However, she is.
I'd like to be.
She's working
She's
her way
working her
there.
way there.
I'm not there yet.
So, but I mean, she is working her way there. Amanda's not a doctor. So.
I just speak from real life experience. So does he. So does Renee as well, and passion for her as well. As well as her on the way to be professional.
Right, I've got a lot of the textbook knowledge, And then I've got some experience in the field as well. So I've got, maybe I'll have some stories that I can share that are client, obviously with no names or anything, but some clients that I might have helped in the past and things like that.
Absolutely.
But certainly I don't claim to be a doctor. And my official title is a mental health consultant, or if you just want to call me a psychology student, that's fine. I like to think I'm a student of the world.
She's a consultant.
But I like to, consultant as in the sense, when you consult with me, it's for information, it's for guidance, it's to help to manage one thing or another, mental health. Then absolutely, then I'm your girl. But no, we're not claiming to be anything that we're not. Just to put that out on the table, and that was well said, Amanda.
I always say we're regular people living life just like everybody else, going through our life experiences just like everybody else, living the moment.
We just happen to have this passion.
And we just happen to have this passion that we want to help people, either get better or stop them from harming themselves.
If we can help at all.
Yeah, any way we can help. And we're going to talk about the stigma. We're going to let Renee
Take this end.
Because she's a professional in this aspect.
I might claim to know a little bit about psychology, but I do not claim to be a very good historian, so please bear with me, because you'll find that as I'm describing what I've learned, that I tend to jump back and forth in timelines, because I've never been really good at keeping that straight. So just so the historians out there, please, bear with me. That's not my specialty. So I got my information from a podcast myself by Michael Britz called The Psych Files, episode 27, if you want to look it up. And he had an interview with a psychology research director called Roger Christenfeld. And what they discussed, and this is what we studied in school, is there were facilities that existed once upon a time. The timeline that they have here is 1869 for a center that was built on the Hudson River in New York, in Poughkeepsie, New York. Sorry.
We apologize if
I apologize if I named your town wrong. Sorry. And so the facilities in this place, actually, this will quite surprise you. People with a mental illness at the time, of course, there was no medication yet, and there were no talk therapies yet, so there wasn't a whole lot of intervention. And so what happened is you would drop off your person, your family member, your loved one, you would drop them off there because they were really difficult to have in your home, and they couldn't help you manage your farm, they couldn't, so you would drop them off at this place. And this place, it was like a self-sufficient village. So it's really kind of neat. They would have farming, they would make their own clothes, they would smoke cigars, they would read newspapers, they would run little businesses, all for other people with mental health disorders. And
this was back in the 1800s?
In the 1800s, yes. And so, yeah, it gets better. So yeah, they would have these places, and so that seemed like a great idea. It seemed like a really peaceful place. It was up on a mountain, sometimes by the rivers, close to the woods, things like that. So it had that calming effect. That and that was the philosophy. And I think that we're coming back to that a little bit today. That sometimes when you're in nature, that kind of thing, it has a calming effect. And at the time, with no medication and no mental health interventions, that's pretty much all you could do, right? The thing with this that's really interesting is that it was easy to drop off somebody, and once that person was signed up, it was really hard for them to get out. Okay? Contrary to today, if you go to a psychiatric ward, or even if you go to a mental health department at the hospital, the first thing, well, not the first thing, but one of the things that they want to put in your plan right away is how to get you back into your life and how to get you back, or is it medication, is it intervention, is it, that outpatient support? They want to get you out of there so they can serve others. So, but back in those days, you got in and it was really hard to get out. You didn't go back home. You were pretty much dropped off there for life. So yeah, that's very interesting. But then what started to happen is there was a change in thinking in society. And one of the things that changed was there was a change at the level of slavery. And so in those days, people started to think, it wasn't right to own another person. It wasn't right to have them give you services for free, and you had to pay people for their work, that kind of thing, which all seems really reasonable. But when it came to these facilities, all of a sudden we were looking at them and saying, okay, the government is funding these facilities, but these people aren't getting paid, and look at what they're doing. They're mending clothes, they're farming, they're sweeping, they're working, and we're not paying them. This is considered slavery. So we wanted to all of a sudden do something about that and send them home somehow. Or, at least society pressured for the funding to be cut on these facilities. Why are we paying for these people to live this high life? They can't even contribute to society. We can't pay them. They can't really do the same work as if they were living in town. So what you had instead was the funding was cut, which means the conditions became really bad. Now, bringing us a little bit forward, like I said, bear with me for the historians, I'm not very good with timelines, but bringing us into the 60s, the 1960s.
But it's interesting, right?
Yeah, it is very interesting. That's why I wanted to bring it to the show, because I think it's really interesting. So now we're looking at the 1960s, and we started to see mental illness as less of, God is punishing my person. God is, God gave me an evil spirit. Like a person with schizophrenia was thought to be a person that was possessed by an evil spirit. Now we started to look at it a little bit more from a medical perspective and go, well, maybe there's some medical, some medical issue there. Maybe there's an imbalance in the brain. We just can't see it. Maybe, so we started to speculate a lot more from the medical point of view. And so we wanted to take these facilities and transform them into hospitals instead, so that we could find treatments instead for these people. And it was really interesting because this was kind of found by chance. What you had was people who had, for example, somebody with schizophrenia who needed to have their appendix taken out, because just like everybody else, they have medical needs as well. And they would go into the hospital and would put under anesthesia, and then they would come out and their hallucinations and delusions were gone, or gone temporarily, or at least they were down. And so families were saying, hey, I've got my person back, I've got my brother back, I've got my daughter back. It was just an amazing thing. And they realized that within the anesthesia there was properties that went against the positive symptoms of schizophrenia. So that's the hallucinations and delusions. So that's the voices that people hear, that's the things that they see that the rest of us don't see, but that are very real to them. So then they started to really look at how this anesthesia has a medical property that can actually help. So what they did then is they started to really examine treatments, medical treatments to help these people. And that's when a lot of medication started to come out, antipsychotic medication and that kind of thing. But in the meantime, again, going back a little bit in time, you've got a lady called Dorothea Dix. And she went around from asylum to asylum and started to document what was actually happening in these places. And because funding was cut, people were living in deplorable, absolutely deplorable conditions. And she described these conditions in some of her writings. I believe she was a journalist. And she was describing that people were chained to beds, people were beaten with rods. She described even like some law professionals who had now developed schizophrenia who were tied to beds and anyways, and she was talking about how life was for them was before and how it is now and how deplorable it is. So then you had this movement in society that wanted to deinstitutionalize. They wanted to break apart all these asylums, and they wanted to implement more medication. And then you have Freud, again, going back a little bit in time, you've got Freud who started to discover talk therapies and how people felt better when they talked about a lot of things that were on their hearts and in their minds. And so you had this movement that was moving towards better treatment. And sometimes it worked, sometimes it didn't. Just like today, you still have a lot of conditions that are really difficult to treat and other ones that are a lot more easy to treat. And so, so basically what happened is you had these families that if something sprung up, let's say somebody developed panic disorder within their family, they would think, well, my goodness, my person reacts every time they see a doorknob and they freak right out. Well, they're going to go to one of those asylums. That's horrible. That was a deplorable condition. So then there was a whole lot of shame that came. There was a whole lot of shame, and you would try to hide your person. You would try to hide that they had these issues, these mental health issues. So hence society started to have a sense of shame and a sense of sadness towards the mistreatment, right, that surrounded mental illness.
That was in the 60s, 1960s?
Yes, we're looking at the 50s, the 60s is when people really started to hide or whatever, whenever there was this information about how deplorable the conditions were. And then we had these hospitals that were trying to help, but they didn't get to the root of all the problems, and they were trying to come up with these medications and treatments to help. So we were kind of in that transition. So there was a lot of shame, and there was still a lot of families that felt that this was an act of God and that they were being punished. And then you had people like Freud who's realizing that a lot of people who had suffered abuse were suffering as adults. And so now families of origins were getting blamed. So parents felt blamed and shamed, especially mothers felt blamed and shamed. So you understand that this brought on a lot of shame and a lot of embarrassment surrounding mental illness. So today we're kind of at the end of that. We're trying to lift that stigma, we're trying to change that attitude, but you can kind of see where it came from, why it is that our parents and our grandparents, and actually somebody told me a story tonight, so I hope she's listening, because she told me a story tonight. She said her aunt was in a hospital, she was misdiagnosed with schizophrenia, and for years they kept her behind bars in this hospital. As it turns out, she was misdiagnosed, and when there was a better understanding of mental illness, she ended up being diagnosed with bipolar disorder. And change in medication, you had a change in the person. All of a sudden, she was responding well to the medication, and she became herself again. And she had lost years and years of her life. So you understand that this aunt of the person who told me the story tonight, there was a lot of shame from her, the generation before her. They had this person that was behind bars in a hospital. They didn't know how to help her, living deplorable conditions, that kind of thing. And so all of a sudden, so that you can see where we're going with this is with medication, with treatment, it helps, it works, and we're going to keep refining them. We're going to keep making them better, and we're going to, we want to reach everybody, and we want to help, because we want to forget those deplorable conditions. We want to move away from those deplorable conditions, and we want people to live their lives the way that they should and manage well whatever it is that they have. So so that's pretty much
where the
story.
stigma
That's where the stigma came from.
That's where the stigma came
Isn't
from.
that interesting, right?
It's crazy.
Yeah, I was just amazed when I learned this in class. I'm like, oh my goodness, how interesting is that?
It's amazing how, I'm curious, we're not live anymore, right?
I don't know.
If you'd like, we can put a link to the podcast in question where I got my information from.
I'm just wondering, and this is just to open the discussion about the stigma. Excuse me. Do we think that religion took advantage of mental health? Because when we start talking about demons,
I try to put myself.
I'm talking about back then. I'm not talking about now. Now it's like religion is, everybody's kind of everywhere with religion. We have our religions, but back in the 60s, the 50s, the 70s, the 80s, 90s kind of started.
That was my question.
90s.
What timeline are you talking about?
Back then.
So, right.
Back then, when it was kind of starting to come out, and now there's shame, and right, well, there's a demon child, but they're not a demon child, right? So did religion take advantage of that?
I don't know. Again, I'm not very good with history, so I don't know how to answer that.
I'm just putting that out there.
Yeah, maybe somebody can answer. Maybe there's a historian out there that's listening and they can chime in and give us information. I really don't know. What I do know is, but even like if you read, the Bible, you'll see some people that Jesus was claimed to have helped and to have healed. And when you read the description of the person, you're like, oh my God, that's somebody with schizophrenia. You know, that today we'd see it differently, but they were trying to chase the demon out of that person because that's what they thought happened. Well, how else would you explain it? You didn't know that synapses didn't connect in the brain, right? You didn't have x-rays and whatever to see these things, or MRIs or CAT scans, or right? So,
Absolutely.
so you had to go with what you knew and
what was
you-
taught back then.
Right, and what you knew was or what you believed was that there was a God, so I must be being punished. I mean, specifically the Catholic religion, I think, is into the whole reward and punishment. So you can see where a lot of people brought in that shame. I must have done something wrong for this to happen to me, or I must have done something wrong for this to happen to my child, or
And people still feel like that
And-
today, right? I mean,
Right.
what have I done, God? Why me? Why?
exactly,
You know,
exactly. So you can see we're still at that tail end of that, integrating that shame.
Yeah. What are your thoughts, Amanda?
Actually, I'm just thinking, like, going forward, why some people too, with not knowing how the medical system works, another reason why they would not want to speak is they think that if they tell their doctor or somebody in that profession something, maybe you not knowing it's the wrong thing, and then they'd be like, oh, and you need to be put in MHU kind of thing. I know many years ago that's what I thought, so I was always very careful in what I said. But really that doesn't happen. You are able to discuss openly to your doctor unless you're going to harm yourself or someone else. That's where they would intervene. But so that portion of the stigma is gone. Now we're just trying to push back that it's not weak to speak, and that there are many, many people out there, probably
Everyone.
most people that you're going to run into has some form of a mental illness, whether it be just very minute or whether it be something on a larger scale. But that's what we want to get across, that it's okay. It is okay to live with a little bit or something major, that there's help out there for everybody, whether you're on the shorter scale all the way in between to something major. It is okay. The illness doesn't define you. You are not that illness.
Awesome.
You just have that illness.
Well said, well said.
I couldn't have said it that way. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Experience. What can I say? Right? I mean, you're bringing your...
But you make a really good point about how people might hesitate to even go to reach out and talk to somebody because they're afraid of being labeled as crazy, or they're afraid, because of the stigma, and possibly because of this history, they might not even know that there's already something attached to, if I'm depressed, is it because I'm crazy, or is it, or PTSD, you get flashbacks, my goodness, maybe you feel like you're losing your mind, and really you're not. Your brain's just trying to process trauma. You know what I mean? And with the right medication, with the right intervention, some people manage really well, and some people have even said that they've outgrown their PTSD and it's gone now. So I think, it's absolutely worth it to reach out, give it a try. If you tried medication before, it didn't work for you, try a different medication, try a different dose, change doctors, do what you have to, take charge of your
For
health.
you, exactly.
Yeah, take charge of your health.
Do what you need to do for yourself. And if you don't feel comfortable with a consultant or a therapist or a doctor, like Renee said in our podcast, find somebody else. Find somebody else that suits you, right? Even and I can say this for Amanda, because even she had this concern with a professional, and she stopped going to see this individual.
Absolutely.
Right?
I've heard of that.
She said that's it.
I strongly
I'm sure you
believe in
remember
that. I strongly believe that you need to find a good match. It's it's like anything else. You're not going to work with somebody you don't like, or you feel that they don't like you, right? You need to have a good match. Sometimes it's a personality difference. Sometimes professionals have been in the field so long they're a little desensitized, and maybe you're sensitive to that. Whatever it is, don't give up. Don't give up on yourself. Take charge of your health and find that person that can help you. And that might be your peers. It might be a support group. It might be just somebody to chat with online. Whatever works for you. And if it's a professional, then keep looking and find that person.
Yeah, because there's a lot of them out there. I say that.
Well, we're a little short, actually, because if you look at prospective jobs out there for mental health professional, it looks really good because it's on the rise. More people are reaching out, and so there's a shortage of professionals. And up here in the north, we're in Timmins, by the way, for those who are not. We're in Timmins, Ontario in Canada, and for us up here, there's a shortage. And so there's a lot of people out there who need the help, who aren't getting the help. Some aren't reaching out, some have reached out, but they're on a waiting list. So,
yeah, and we're definitely, these are topics that we're going to discuss as we move forward. So there's many topics that we are going to discuss in this year. The other thing is, like I mentioned at the beginning of the show, is that we've taken a slight turn, and instead of doing, you know, live videos and even shooting every week, we're going to do it every second week. Every second week we're going to be shooting. No, are we shooting every second week?
Bi-weekly.
Yeah, bi-weekly. Bi-weekly.
Bi-weekly. Joe, are you still going to do your live?
I will be
Okay.
doing. I will still do the live. You know, I went on live this morning to let everybody
I saw
know
that.
what was going on, what was transpiring. It's our first day. We are shooting, kind of giving them little hints as far as what they can expect, the topics that we're going to be discussing. So, I mean, I look forward to this year, right?
I'm so excited.
Guys, 26 episodes. This is episode number 1, 25 more to go, and many, many different topics to discuss. So, like I said this morning, if you guys tuned in, we're going to be talking about schizophrenia. We're going to be talking about bipolar. We're going to be talking about PTSD. We're going to be talking about you know, people's sexuality, transgender. Hot topics, and they are real, and they affect people, right? The person that's going through it, and even the families that have to go through it
Yeah, with that person.
with that individual
that
or
person that you
individuals,
love.
right? So, and that's for anything that's mental health related.
Yes.
What's the matter?
Nothing.
So, with that, I want to thank Amanda.
Thank you.
Or what? Sorry. What's hostess? No,
Hostess. Yeah, I guess.
Co-hostess?
Co-hostess.
my
Is that even a word? We have a dictionary. We have.
co-hostesses? Isn't that what you said at the beginning of the show?
I said that. I don't know. Am I correct?
I
I've taught English, but you couldn't tell.
I'd like to thank my co-hostesses for joining me tonight. Amanda, my wife, Renee, our friend, our professional, our consultant on the panel, on the show, and ladies, I look forward to, again, a great year of Coffee with Joe, bringing that awareness to everyone.
And for us,
What's going on, everybody?
we would like to thank you for, you know, starting this and starting Coffee with Joe and keeping it real, and
Keeping it real.
that
Keeping
it's not,
it real.
Let's not forget keeping it real.
Keeping it real.
Amanda said it,
everyone.
keeping it real, keeping it real. What is keeping it real?
Tell us,
I'll
Joe.
tell you guys what keeping it real is. It's my own personal clothing line. We started a movement, many people on board. Again, it's just to spread the awareness for mental health. Everybody's rising up, speaking up, joining the fight, and putting an end surrounding mental health. So, I mean, I can't thank everybody enough, those who've bought in and who are joining the movement, rising up, honestly.
So where does some of the proceeds go?
Proceeds right now are going to the youth mental health. Let me restart that.
So where are the proceeds going?
The proceeds are going to the Youth Wellness Hub at the moment in Timmins, Ontario.
To start, there are a few others that we will be reaching out to, and hopefully as we grow, we'll be able to reach out to more, just to keep this going. So when you do join the movement, you're not just purchasing a shirt, you're also keeping it real and showing your support to others out there, that you're showing that it's not weak to speak. That's another thing that I love along with keeping it real, that it's not weak to speak. So, we'd like to thank you for making these to be able to help fund or give funds for research, for these other places that help people with mental health.
It's my pleasure. Honestly, it's my pleasure. It's my passion. I love what I'm doing, and I hope you guys are going to enjoy it. I'm sure you will, and we'll keep this moving growing.
And I'd like to say thank you to Joe and Amanda for inviting me to participate in the show. I was sure I was going to be having fun, and I have. I've been having fun, and I'm looking forward. It hasn't happened yet, but I'm looking forward to when I walk around town and I see somebody wearing one of these shirts, and I'm going to go, hey, hey, and they're going to recognize me, and they're going to go, hey, hey.
Absolutely.
So we're going to be able to say, you know what? Let's end the stigma. Let's bring it down together. Come on.
Knock that wall down
Woohoo!
together. You
Yay!
know, it's easier to do
Like
it
a
as
wall
a
of
group
Berlin.
than it is alone.
Yes, absolutely.
Absolutely. What's that saying that we're stronger together?
We're stronger together than we are alone, right? So stand together, stand strong. So it ain't weak to speak. With that, we leave you guys. Goodbye. Until next time.